Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabello with Harlan's Media. I'm joined here today with my co-host Daniel Lupker. We've got a great show for you guys. We've been talking about it during pre-production, and the first hour is action-packed, second hour is action-packed. Chicago Corner is going to be epic.
I like to think that every show we do is a little bit better than the last.
Yeah, and we got a lot of great stories ranging from this polar vortex towards the presidential run and numerous other political issues. But we're going
a lot of presidential stuff to talk about. You guys are very lucky. I'm not going to be here in the second hour with Paul, but they have a really good. I'm very excited to hear what they say about Tulsi Gabbard, but that's just a hold on until that happens.
So hold on, and we've got so much more to tell you too. So Daniel, though, you have an interesting story that has been brought to our attention. We talked about it just before the show started. And it's how good old Turtle Boy, Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell, is wanting to cut entitlements to pay for rising government deficits, even though there was this ridiculous tax cut that would benefit the rich, and then because of the rich being so powerful and having all that tax cuts, the wealth would trickle down to it.
Of course,
right?
Trickles down just like urine.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lovely story from Mitch McConnell, who I feel like I've read this story several times before in my life, where Mitch McConnell says, you know what? We just did these tax cuts, but you know what the real issue is? Not the tax cuts. It's this entitlement spending. It's this small, tiny fraction of what actually is being spent that is the cause. Of course, it's not this $2 trillion tax cut that we've put in. That's not a big issue at all. This is who Mitch McConnell is. This is what Mitch McConnell does. This is his track record. This is how he's always been, very similar to Newt Gingrich before him. He is a smart guy, turtle-like, as Kit pointed out, but he's very good at what he does, and he's very good at maintaining power. So when he gets a tax cut out of the way, it seemed obvious, open up Mitch's playbook. What are you going to see? What are you going to expect? What do you think he's going to do when the deficit balloons itself, as it does in all recent Republican administrations? Blame it on the poor people. Those poor people with the least amount of power, the most to lose, they're the ones that are causing this issue. It's not the rich and powerful who have bought the Congress, who have bought our government, that got a giant tax cut, basically the biggest thing that Trump did so far. No, that's not it. That was a good thing that helped the government, even though it didn't make any jobs. Right. It caused buybacks of stock. But, of course, Mitch McConnell, again, is able to, because of how mainstream media is oriented, to go on to mainstream media and say, yeah, this is not us, this is someone else. And the failure of the structure that is mainstream media that happily responds back with, oh, well, it's 50-50. Republicans say this, Democrats say that. Who are we to judge? We're just making money off of both of them.
Right. So here's something we need to take away from this is that when Senator Mitch McConnell is talking about entitlement programs, well, what does he mean exactly? Well, these are probably programs to help out those who are disabled, teachers, infrastructure problems. As we all know, the United States has a crumbling infrastructure problem. There's many other things that have to deal with the environment, sciences, education, and these are programs that are going to be cut. But the thing is, one thing I would ask the senator is, if you're willing to cut these entitlement programs to help out the less fortunate, those who do not have your kind of financial backing, what are you going to do about the military-industrial complex? We're wasting trillions of tax dollars onto military programs that are failing. We have the ridiculous investment into the Joint Strike Fighter. It's a failed project that is not working correctly. And I'm noticing that there's no cuts for those programs, but everything else they're going to get cut. So whenever you hear, especially Republican establishment leaders talking about doing entitlement cuts, remember, it's only going to affect the working class people, poor people, predominantly. It's not going to affect Wall Street or the military-industrial complex. And you also hear the same thing too from establishment Democrats too, and probably they're going to probably get some sort of bipartisan support. There's going to probably be some sort of talk, but it gets to the point to where we have to get angry at these elected officials, and we have to voice our disapproval of how they've been running this country, especially running the Senate and House for such a long time. This is what happens when you have unchecked power. This is money in politics. All thanks to Citizens United and McCutcheon's decision. So long as you have money in politics, our government is only going to work for the top 1%, and the top 1% want to have tax cuts. And they also want to make sure that their livelihoods are better than ours. And they also want to make sure that any kind of, entitlement programs are going to be cut because they don't want to share that power. So when you hear this guy, our good friend Senator Mitch McConnell, wanting to do these entitlement cuts, beware. It's going to affect you.
So I want to add into this that this is what I call corporate socialism. This is transfer of wealth, and we've seen it for 40 years. This is just as it's always been. The middle class and the poor of America having things, either money that's sent to them for food stamps or what have you, or certain taxes and who pays them and where that money comes from. And all this is here's the 1%, here's everyone else. That's all that's occurring.
Yeah.
That's all that's occurring. And Mitch McConnell is blaming it on the people with nothing. Again, I'm not really surprised. This story isn't really that shocking. It's good to say this again. It's good to remind everyone this is how things function. This is how a clever Republican leader will act in a situation after they cut taxes and deficits go up when they need a scapegoat. And this is how the media acts, by writing stories as if maybe this is a reasonable thing to say that has some backing. This is nothing more than a transfer of wealth from the poor of America to the wealthy, and then the whole is filled by the poor of America. That's all this is. That's all this ever is. But of course, because if you're a powerful person like Mitch McConnell, and everyone in the news is, of course, a multimillionaire and everything, it's an obvious outcome to a solution made by people who want more tax decreases. Or that's all this is. That's all this ever will be. That's all this is. And again, it's a shame that the mainstream media props it up so well.
And one final note for this story. Look, we're still walking out of this government shutdown, and I can guarantee you this: those 800,000 government employees that had to take ridiculous credit card loans and numerous other things that they had to do just to make sure that their house didn't go into foreclosure or they weren't kicked out in the streets. They probably need some of these programs that Mitch McConnell wants to cut. So, those are people. Everyone probably needs to use those programs. And the very fact that, we are in a situation like this where we have a government that's basically an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. We have a system that only works for the top 1%. So I almost want to ask these senators and congressmen, where's your humanity? Where's your compassion for your fellow man? Because people are struggling to make ends meet in this country. And the very fact that we have, I guess, a system that only works for the top 1% should enrage a lot of Americans. So that's why I say, hey, now's the time to get involved politically. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, now's the time to step up and get involved in this electoral process. We have to understand how our political system works so that we can create a better system, not only for ourselves, but for the next generation, because this current one does not work.